Welcome to a Friday edition of Blue Collar Sports Talk. Next week, we'll go back to our normal Thursday spot. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of today's show. We'll start off with Monday night's NCAA championship in football between TCU and Georgia. Moving to the NFL, Titans at the Jaguars, Patriots at the Bills, Giants at the Eagles, Rams at the Seahawks, Cowboys at the Commanders, and then the Lions at the Packers. We'll take a quick peek at some Husker hoops. On January 7th, the men's team will be on the road at Minnesota. Also on January 7th, the women's team will be at Rutgers. Staying in the basketball arena, we'll take a look at Friday night's ESPN matchup between the Nets at the Pelicans. The late ESPN game on Friday, we'll take a look at the Heat at the Suns. In a Monday game, at 6:30 on NBA TV will be the Bulls at the Celtics. Hey, everybody. We don't have Roger today. I apologize. He's got some stuff he's got to do.
I'm here.
James is here with us. It's a Friday. I know we normally do it Thursday, but we had some scheduling conflicts that we just couldn't work around, so we're doing it this morning. And we're going to jump right into the NCAA championship game. 13-1 TCU versus 14-0 Georgia. That's a Monday night game. The overs, I looked at this yesterday, and they were overs were 62.5 with Georgia being favored by 12.5. Let me take a quick peek. Did any of that change overnight? No, still the same. Right away, I'm just going to go with Roger. He sent me a text, and he thinks late in the game, the Bulldogs are going to pull away and cover the whole spread.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know if they'll get to that 12.5, but I mean, that's just what Roger's thinking. And again, Georgia really hasn't been covering very well all season. They just win. They just make sure that they have more numbers in.
Well, last game, right at the end, we don't have to be winning the whole game. We don't get points per quarter. All we got to do is have that at the very end. And, we always talk about defense wins championships. And, I'm going to have to disagree now. Both those semifinal games, the defense was extremely optional. They showed up, I think, every fifth series. Defense actually made some plays. Other than that, great for the fans and football people. It wasn't a 12-14, a 2017 ball game. It was an all-out shootout. Even TCU, who I'm sure very little people gave any hope to, showed up against a Power 5, and I know they're Big 12, but going against the Big 10, number 2 Michigan. Vegas probably won a lot of money on people betting Michigan. I'm so happy for TCU to make it this far. I've been with them. I don't think they're going to win this game, unfortunately. I totally agree with Roger. Again, I think it stays close. I don't know about them pulling away because they couldn't put Michigan away with that defense. Even right when I was like, okay, Georgia got to stop. Their defense is going to be locked in. And Michigan scores in 4 plays.
Do you know the story of these two coaches? The opposing coaches have known each other since they've been in their 20s and coaching on similar teams together. It's
same
nuts.
Philosophy, same thoughts. Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to leave a link. ESPN had a great story that goes down their entire history for both sides of these guys, for TCU and Georgia. I don't see Georgia covering 12.5. I just don't.
Same.
But I see Georgia winning.
Yep.
Georgia won by 1 point, okay, against Ohio State. And Ohio State is tough. TCU beat Michigan, which I considered Michigan to be the only team that would come in and challenge Georgia, but they don't even get a try.
And their defense, their thing that they hadn't had on all year, that second half defense, a second half team where we're going to shut you down and we're going to explode. Man, it just didn't. TCU just never let down. Thankfully, they said, no. We're going to take a punch. And that Ohio State, and I know both teams lost players, but if they wouldn't have lost Marvin Harrison, I think they hold off against Georgia. Obviously, we'll never know. But, man, for Stenison to come in late, make some of those big throws late, and honestly, a couple blown coverages by Ohio State, Yeah, I hope this comes down to another 45-40 ball game. I really hope it's just another shootout.
I'm right there with you. I do believe it will come down to the last possession, whoever has that final possession. So whatever it's going to take for whoever wins, but I'm taking Georgia and the overs. Both teams can score. Georgia really didn't show that until last week, the last 2 weeks, kind of, that, hey, we can put up a lot of points.
Right.
But we're just going to make sure we have at least one more point than the other team.
And the overs, yeah, I'm kind of surprised at the 62. That really, I would expect, in the 70s, but maybe they think the defense will show up this time. I don't know.
I don't know either. Are you taking TCU?
No, I would love to. Like I said, I didn't want to pick against them. I think I got like 8 weeks straight of picking them. The clock might have hit 12 on them. To me, Georgia looks really good. I mean, if I'm looking at it on just the tape and not being, picking with my heart, Georgia is just better.
The clock hitting 12. You had me chuckling there. I mean, that's a good way to look at it when you think that, hey, they've done this the entire season, but who knows what's going to happen. So, I think all three of us, we took Georgia. Roger's about the only one who thinks they're going to cover that 12.5, but you never know.
Right, yeah.
You really don't.
I mean, yeah, they could be up 6 and then get a pick 6 right at the end when they're TC trying to play catch up. I can see it, but my biggest thing is just the over under and, Georgia winning. I said it's title game 1 versus 3. There shouldn't even. I'm really surprised the point spread as high as it is.
Right, and this is a Monday night game, so this is going to be a fun. This is going to be a fun Monday night game for people. ESPN 6:30. If you're not watching this and are a fan of football, well, I hope you recover quickly because I'm guessing something's really wrong if you don't get a chance to watch this. I'll unfortunately be at work, so that's why I don't get to watch it. Staying on the football front, let's take a look at some NFL. We're going to start with a Saturday game. The Titans are on their third string QB, and they're going on the road to the surging Jaguars. Jags are 8-8. Titans are 7-9. Jags are favored by 6.5 with the overs at 40. James, what do you think about this guy?
Excuse me. Like you said, surging. This is two teams in opposite directions. The Titans were looking like one of the best teams, not only in their division, but obviously in the AFC. And they've lost, 5 some straight, 6 games, whatever it is. Jacksonville on the opposite side got blown out by Detroit and then has went on 4 straight, including beating the Titans a few weeks ago. So Jaguars obviously beat my Cowboys in overtime, but doesn't matter. 6.5, right? The over under 40. I don't even know if the Titans can score 10, to be honest with you. But to me, I just, this late in the season, winner takes the division, winner's in the playoffs. I think the Jags are playing the better out of the two. I have no idea what happened to the Titans. I know Tannehill went down, but the defense in that run game has been very non-existent. I said, I like the Jags. They're playing with a lot of confidence. Lawrence is actually looking like a top quarterback. Love to see what he brings next year, to see how much he's matured and said, okay, hey, now it's time to win 10, 11 games. That's got to be a mark, I think, for any quarterback. So, yeah, I got the Jags.
I've got the Jags as well. They are boogieing here, and the Titans have fallen apart.
Oh, yeah.
I never saw them having this much trouble. I talked to a coworker. He's just like, we've never really been that big of a fan of Tannehill. We've just never really gone out and gotten one, and they haven't.
Fact.
And they're on their third stringer. Roger thinks it's the Jags as well, partially because of that third string. But the Jags need to do something here, and I think they easily cover that 6.5. Whether they get to that 40, I don't know. That's kind of iffy.
Yeah, that's awfully high. I mean, the Jags put up 31 on their own last week against Houston. I don't know if it's that easy against the Titans to put up 31, but I do think they win easily, like I could say a double-digit spread here easily.
But even though the Titans aren't that good on offense, they're holding people to about 21 points a game. So, I mean, they do have a decent defense. So,
right.
I just don't think the Titans have enough to stop the Jags. So, the Patriots at the Bills. The Patriots need this. The Patriots need this in the biggest way possible.
And on the flip side, the Bills need it also. Obviously, just about everybody knows what's happened on that Monday night game. So all they've decided so far is that they're not going to replay that game. A couple of scenarios is one of them, if the Bills win, Cincinnati win, Kansas City wins. If they face each other in the title game, it's going to be at a neutral site is what they're going to be pitching. So to me, Bills are like, hey, we won't get that 17th game like everyone else, but as long as we win, we have a chance to be either on a neutral site or at home, if Kansas City and Cincinnati fall off. So to me, both teams need it. I look at it as this. If this was Monday when I was looking at this game, my thoughts were, I don't know how the Bills win another game. With what just happened, Tuesday morning when I was looking at it, hearts are heavy. Thoughts are obviously not on football. Now they're getting a lot of positive coming out from DeMar. Things are looking really good, a little more upbeat. Now I think it's more, hey, let's win this for DeMar. I think New England's in trouble.
I'm right there with you. I don't see the Patriots having a chance because even the hockey team in Buffalo dedicated their next game, which was that same night, I want to say, or the next night, to DeMar. So I think the Bills win. I don't think they cover just because I know that the Patriots are tough, but this is crazy. So the Patriots have to win, but they can still get in if the Dolphins and Steelers both lose and Jacksonville wins, which is possible.
Right.
Because the Dolphins aren't looking good. The Steelers are up and down. They can't decide on a quarterback. But again, it's that number one thing, that number one seed for the AFC, which really hangs in the Bills' balance.
Big time, yeah.
And honestly, it's not as big of a deal for the Bills as it would be for other teams, in my humble opinion, because I think the Bills can win anywhere.
Right. Oh, agreed.
So all three of us took the Bills on this one. Roger took the Bills. But again, Belichick, I mean, he can throw a wrench into all these and coach his guys up to like, hey, we don't want to go home. Let's get this done. Let's not rely on three other teams to make this happen for us. So moving on to the next one, Giants and the Eagles. Again, no team in the NFC has the decider that has the bye. Yeah, right. No one has the bye yet. Even the Cowboys could get it.
Right.
Which after reading that, I was a little shocked, but I mean, it still could happen. So yeah, the Eagles are 13-3. They're favored by 14. Overs are set at 43. Giants are 9-6-1. But man, they can play. That's another team that's been surging late in the season.
Yeah, I've liked them, and one thing that that doesn't get brought up because it's the Giants. Maybe we're just not in their media area. Like we get a lot of updates with the Cowboys and Browns and Eagles and all them, but the Giants have had so many injuries, especially in their secondary. You can talk about playing third string. And I really want to pick. Now the rumors are coming out. Giants are resting people. The Eagles are going to rest some people. It's hard to make a pick. You don't know who's going to step up or whatever. And Eagles really handled the Giants a few weeks ago, winning by 20 points or 18, whatever it was. and it's at home with Philly.
48-22.
Yeah, see, there you go. I mean, you could have doubled them. They still lost. So I look at it as the Eagles need it more than the Giants. Giants aren't going to change their spot pretty much. So Eagles know, hey, we have to win, and we get not only our division, but we get the home field. Yeah, so you're right. So if the Eagles lose, it's the 49ers. And then if the Eagles and 49ers lose, the Cowboys can slide in for that home field. But on the flip side, even if the Eagles lose and Dallas wins, Dallas can take the NFC East. So, man, it's I'm going to go with the Eagles mostly because they need it more than the Giants. But I do think the 14 points is a little high.
Okay, so you're going Eagles win, but the Giants cover.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this a little bit differently. The Eagles are on a 2-game losing streak, unfortunately. But part of that was Jalen Hurts was out. And if he gets hit just right, Gardner Minshew comes back in. And they're not the same team. Gardner's a great quarterback.
Oh, I like him.
But he's not as outstanding as Jalen Hurts is. So I'm going the opposite route. I'm saying if they try to force Jalen Hurts to come back too quick, which everyone knows they will, because he wants to play and because the team wants him to play, that gives him the best chance. I think the Giants eke out a win on the road. I really do.
I would love it. And I'm glad you mentioned that with Minshew. And this is one of my problems early in the season or even halfway through when we were talking about, and I didn't have the Eagles as a dominant team because although they do have great receivers, I don't know if it's the offensive route, the play routes that they call or the whatever it is. But without having Jalen Hurts' running ability, you saw it against the Cowboys. It really hampered the Eagles' offense. Minshew is not going to break you off a 40-yarder or, evade a tackle and, get you that first down.
No, he definitely won't.
Right. So it's either the receivers are not getting open or I said the passing routes that they have, the scheme isn't as good. And Hurts could cover that up. So, yeah, if Hurts has to get in a game with the Giants and have to run a few times, takes a couple shots, now you're putting your whole playoffs in jeopardy. So, if anything, I see Hurts playing a half and then sitting if they have a 10-point lead or whatever, just to make sure he's okay for the playoffs.
Because I'm agreeing with you 100% because what happened with Gardner Minshew on the previous week, and I could be getting this wrong, but he threw a pick that, oh my gosh, you got hurried, you got rushed, man, just take the sack, eat it, and move on. Don't give him the field, don't give him the short field, but he was trying to do too much. And there's quarterbacks that have played this year that aren't the starter, that are the backups, that realize I don't want to try to do too much. I'm still kind of learning the system. I'm still trying to get on the same page as my receivers. My linemen don't necessarily know what I'm going to do when there's trouble, so maybe they push the guy into me when I'm actually trying to get out of the pocket. So there's just so many factors when you bring in a backup. And again, Gardner's great, but he's just not on the same page as everybody else. So that's another reason why I'm going with the Giants. Another interesting game between a really faulty Rams team this week.
Yeah, they're lambs.
They are. They're 5-11. They're on the road to the Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 6 with over set at 41.5. Seahawks have to have this.
Right. And this is one of the games the line needs help. The Lions need a win and a Seahawks loss. I just don't see the Seahawks losing. I mean, Geno definitely has come down to earth. And their defense has not played as well as they did to start off the season. I like the Seahawks mainly because the Rams are bad. Granted, Baker has done pretty decent there. But overall, I mean, excuse me, they played the Chargers last week, picked up a whopping 10 points, gave up 31. Yes, I know Aaron Donald's out, done for the season. So there's your defensive line. So I think his biggest thing was his 51 against Denver. That was Baker's big hurrah. And now this is going to be another 31-10 ball game, and Seattle's going to come on top and make the playoffs.
The Rams have a great coach, but for whatever reason, I don't know if something's going on in the locker room or they lost too many integral pieces that just added up to 11 losses this year. But I'm on the same page. There's no way that the Seahawks drop this game without some major injuries.
Right.
I'm not wishing that to happen.
No, right.
I'm just thinking Seahawks win and cover because Rams are soft.
Yeah, and I like how you said that. The Rams kind of brought everyone back besides Odell, obviously, who is, didn't even finish the Super Bowl. But you have your main weapons. I think the main thing that the Rams, if you're a Rams fan out there, you need a running back, somebody to, 4 or 5 yards a chunk. And by the way, I'll offer Zeke up anytime you want him.
Right.
We'll just take Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Rams are missing a definitive run game.
Eckler. Why did they let Eckler leave?
Right. And he's doing, Chargers like, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
And he ate them up. That was another thing. He had a couple of nice runs against them.
9 times out of 10, when you see a player, and I don't care if it's a lineman, a defensive back, or a running back or a quarterback, they meet their team that decided, yeah, we don't need you. I'm going to prove to you that you're really wrong.
Right.
I think that you need to eat this little pill that I'm going to make you swallow. I'm going to have 100 and some yard game. Enjoy.
Yeah. Brown with the Eagles going against the Titans.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, just get me the ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please.
Done.
Please get me the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rams had all the returning. There was no reason for them being at 5-11. I mean, they were losing before Stafford went out, so can't blame it on the quarterback.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. This is, in my humble opinion, I agree with you. This is not a Stafford issue.
No.
Not even close. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Cowboys 12-4 on the road at the Commanders 7-8-1. I'm just 100% glad that the Cowboys don't have Ron Rivera as a coach.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you. So as a Cowboys fan, and if any of you Cowboy fans watch the games and pay attention all the way back to Dak's rookie season where he went in 13 wins, they got the first round bye and then lost. The Cowboys, historically, this nucleus of Cowboys with Dak and Zeke and them, when they rest, they suck. I hope McCarthy also with his analytics and look at it and all that, and like, you know what? I know that it says to rest players, that's what you're supposed to do. But we don't do well when we rest. Look at this year, the Thanksgiving break. Come back after that and you struggle early in the first half to play against the Giants and you have to pull out a win. You have a mini bye week. You come in and play the Green Bay Packers and you lost. The Houston game was also another mini bye week, and they almost lost that game. So anyway, whenever these guys, for whatever reason, when they get that extra rest and should be coming in revived and refreshed, are coming in sluggish, like I don't know, maybe they're not studying, not paying attention. I have no idea. All I know is when you look at the games after a bye week or one of those Thursdays or Sunday mini buys, it's terrible. So I have heard rumors that they're going to scoreboard watch, which I'm fine with. If they play a half, I'd be good with that. And they see the Eagles are blowing out the Giants, they're going to start sitting their players. I'm glad they put both games on at the same time because Dallas needs to win. I'm not a fan of, we rested our players. Yeah, and then you're going to lose the next week. They did that against the Eagles, a few years ago.
On a number of occasions, the Cowboys have overlooked their opponent this season, and it's really frustrated me.
Yes.
So if they do that, I am going to throw things at my TV. No, I'm not. But here's the craziest scenario. If it all plays out, if the 49ers lose, if the Eagles lose, not only is Dallas in and winning the East, they get that number 1 seed in the first round bye. I don't think that happens. I know I picked the Giants to win, but money says the Eagles are going to do it.
Right.
Money says the 49ers are going to do it. So that still gives them, the 2 seed? So they're not going to get that first round bye.
Right.
The issue with all that, either scenario, there's a really good chance that Aaron Rodgers comes to town and they have to face the Green Bay Packers. And that guy has always gotten their number.
In the playoffs especially.
But also, Aaron is facing his old coach, so he knows exactly what he's going to do in every single situation.
And they already beat him this year.
Oh, bad.
So, and on that note, the Cowboys are looking at either Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, two of the worst scenarios that can come up in the playoffs for them. So, yeah, so when you look at the game, like the Jacksonville game that you blew, the Green Bay game that you should have won, if you would have just took care of business and not looked past your opponent or whatever, you'd be sitting pretty right now and not worrying about facing Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady to start off the playoffs. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Exactly. So there's a couple games that just stand out that, I mean, come on, Cowboys, what are you doing?
Right.
Really, you're taking this week off, or you party too hard,
Thank
or
you. Listen to the media. Oh, we only need about 60%. We can win this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I come on, you have to put it in every single week. And some of those I'm going to chalk up. I'm going to allow 2 of those losses because Dak wasn't back in his rhythm yet. Because Cooper Rush kept you guys on track.
Yeah.
And some of those games, I'm like, man, okay, so maybe it doesn't matter as long as we win every game in the playoffs, but the seeding kind of matters.
Right.
To continue on.
Yeah.
So,
and I know we're putting it on the Dak and the offense, but this defense, for whatever reason, right after Dak started getting his groove, and Van Der Esch going out really hurt in the linebacker spot, but this defense has been terrible. I mean, they would barely be able to win in the NFC South right now, as bad as they play.
And the rush hand, who sometimes plays outside linebacker, Micah Parsons. Doesn't he have a bandage on his hand? Isn't it wrapped, or like a semi-cast or something?
He cut it.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
Right. No word. I don't really care how he cut his hand. It's not my business. But yeah, so that's why it was wrapped. So thankfully, it's not a bone. I'm
laughing because my guess is he was cutting limes to make margaritas.
I was thinking tomatoes for that BLT. But right, yeah, it was probably something really silly, being dumb. But thankfully, it is just a cut, who they said is pretty much healed. I'm trying to remember if I read if it was going to be wrapped or not. But I did see that Tyler Badash is not going to be at center this week. That high ankle sprain is going to keep him out. They're going to move McGovern into center. Van Der Esch is still listed as doubtful. I said it last week with Roger. Micah should be moving back to the linebacker position to help stop the run and let the D-line do the D-line thing. Let Micah play that linebacker until Van Der Esch comes back. But all that said and done, I still think the Cowboys get it done, mainly because Rivera and the Commanders are just a hot mess.
They are a hot mess, but at the same time, the Commanders, for whatever reason, when they were the Redskins, always played the Cowboys tough. Even when they were the last place in their division, somehow they would eke out a win because they always wanted to play the Cowboys tough. So both teams field professional players.
100%.
So I know the Commanders have something to prove. I think the Cowboys win, but I don't think they cover.
Yeah, and it's only a whopping 7 points, Yeah. Again, this late in the year, and I don't know, do they start sitting people to where they don't care? So, yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
If you're betting on games this week, don't bet a game unless you know that team needs it. Like the Jaguars-Titans. That's a game you might put money on. The Packers-Lions. That's a game you could put money on, But these other ones, I wouldn't even touch them.
And honestly, I would take a look at some of the overs and unders, like the Eagles and Giants. I would take the unders all day long. But I say that, and then they'll both score 27 points for some reason. So, go ahead.
I'm just moving on to the Packers-Lions game. I think it's a lot like, with the Titans and Jaguars. As far as, obviously, both teams need it. Lions need a little more help. Packers winning, they're in, obviously. Lions need help from somebody. But two teams that I have no idea how they got here. If we go back 5 weeks, I even think we said it here when the Green Bay lost that last game. Was it the Philly game? Probably. They're done. They're out. There's no way they come back. They reel off 4 straight. Now, granted, they didn't beat great teams. Bears, Rams, Miami. We know about the Miami game, Tua probably being concussed during those last picks. But the Minnesota win, hats off to you, Green Bay Packers. That was a hell of a shot. It just tells me, where was this all year? How did you play down to so much competition? But anyway, they got it right when it's supposed to. And I really, really keep my fingers crossed for Detroit to win. But being at Green Bay, a win and you're in, I will take Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback to win and in nothing against Jared Goff and the Lions. I hope that defense plays lights out this weekend. But if I'm putting money down, I'll take the Packers to win and then, and be in the playoffs.
But yeah, Vegas has the Packers as a 4.5-point favorite. The Lions need a miracle. And the reason I say it's a miracle, the Lions not only have to win, the Seahawks have to lose at home against the Rams. Don't see that happening. So I'm going with the Green Bay Packers as well. But when you back somebody into the corner, there's that what if.
Right.
And we all, like you say, we all know Goff can play.
Yeah.
And Goff has weapons. And if you give Goff time, he will light you up.
Yep. And Green Bay's defense isn't great. And and Goff put up 41 points against the Chicago Bears. Yep.
Granted, the Bears have had their issues, but they have a halfway decent secondary. Yeah. And the Lions beat the Jets. The Lions beat the Vikings. The Lions beat the Jags. The Lions put up 40 points on the Jags.
Right. And those are more quality wins. The Jags in the playoffs, Minnesota in the playoffs. Jets are looking at it. Obviously that loss to the Carolina hurts them the most. And again, Carolina is another team that's playing really good football until they met the Bucs and all of a sudden forgot how. And it's so funny because when Rodgers sent that text, how they're going to let Brady have a comeback, I was like, there's no way. Don't jinx them. And sure enough.
And what'd they do? Let him have a comeback.
Oh, my gosh. And I mean, how do you not have a safety over the top? Anyway, I hope Dan Campbell has a speech that, we need help, but we can send Green Bay home out of the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
But they also better prepare to play in the cold because it's going to be a cold, cold night. It's not a day game. It's a night game.
Yes.
So as soon as that sun goes down, man, it is going to be bitterly cold in Green Bay.
And you know what? I don't know when the last time this happened, but they can finish ahead of the Packers in the standings with the win. Granted, they wouldn't make the playoffs, and there's no moral victories.
Yeah, they're both 8-8.
Right, but if you can go and say, "Hey, not only we put the Packers off, we're 9-8, they're 8-9. We beat. We're ahead of them." Good way to start the next season.
You tell me the last time the Lions had a winning record.
Oh my God! Yeah,
without searching on my smartphone, that actually makes me smarter. I couldn't do it either.
Where's that staff that's supposed to be kicking us numbers over here? Earlier, you had talked about a couple games, so. Jets-Dolphins is another, I think, definitely a 50-50 game. Dolphins need a win. And then that Steelers game, Steelers-Browns, and I know this isn't on our sheet. I'm taking the Browns to win that. Mainly, Steelers are playing pretty good football. They've definitely played decent against Baltimore. That was a horrible watching game. Oh, my gosh, that was a very painful game to watch. But I like the Browns in that game, so I could see the Steelers going out and helping out the other teams.
I'm gonna leave a link in the description again. ESPN broke this down really, really well for what every team needs. All the scenarios for if this team loses and if this team wins, who gets in, who gets kicked out. So look for the description for that link. And we are going to move on to look at some Husker hoops. The Husker men, January 7th, are going to play at Minnesota on the road. And this is a Saturday, 11 o'clock game. It will be on BTN.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And also the Husker ladies are also on BTN that very same day at 1 p.m. Rutgers is 6-10. The Lady Huskers are 10-5. Even though they're missing Allison Widener, they are still tough and strong. And every time I watch them, the former volleyball player, which is also now the Husker basketball player, in Maggie Mendelson, she's getting better every game.
Right.
The last game that I watched, they lost a tough one in overtime.
Indiana.
Yeah. But I did notice that they got Markowski to shoot more threes because prior to that, they had a tough loss where she didn't even attempt a three. And they took that one to overtime, but then Indiana just rocked them in overtime.
Yeah, when I got, you guys sent me the message that it was close and I was at work, so I tried to get it turned on and watch it, and I'm like, okay. And they started playing bad, so I turned it off, and I turned it back on, 2 straight turnovers, and I was like, okay, well, obviously I must be jinxing them. But yeah, whatever reason, they played great in the regulation, but came that overtime, and they just, all the mojo was gone.
Well, and they can play really well. They knocked off a Kansas team that was ranked at the time in a triple overtime. Just a blast to watch. And then Michigan comes to town and just punches them right in the mouth. That was a tough. I mean, I think all of the wind got it knocked out of their sails when Allison Widener went down.
Yes, big time.
Amy Williams got it back on track, and I really thought they had a great chance of knocking off Indiana in Indiana, but then just something changed in overtime where I don't even think we scored a point in extra time. Yep. So I will leave a Huskers link, huskers.com link. But again, both of those are going to be on BTN, both on Saturday. Husker men early, 11 a.m., Husker ladies afternoon, 1 p.m. James, you had a...
Well, the Husker men, I'm very impressed with. I didn't have a lot of hopes for them, but I mean, they're sitting at 8-7. They lost at Michigan State. Not a great. It wasn't much, very close at all. Very winnable game here against Minnesota to keep above. My biggest thing is beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Give yourself a chance at the end of the season to get in the tournament at least. Fred has definitely done better with this team. I know last few years we keep talking about, they have all this talent, and then we don't see it. Well, these guys are actually playing better second halves than what we're used to.
Huge second halves.
Right. So I like them. I'm glad this is on BTN. Hopefully I get a chance to watch it or at least see some of it. I'm excited. Let these guys play and, get some Nebraska basketball up there.
What's good and bad? They play to the level of their competition. That's good when they play at Purdue and can take them to overtime. It's bad when they lose to a Kansas State who isn't very good this year. They're good, but they're not as good as they have been. And Michigan State. Michigan State's still really well coached, but why didn't we show up that game?
Right.
I mean, they beat us by 20 almost.
Yeah. Did you lose when you walked in the stadium? Like, this is the Spartans. They're really good, so let's just go through the motions. Speaking of, you got a Michigan State game coming up on the 7th, Saturday. Sorry, also Saturday, 1:30 game. That should be pretty good interstate battle there.
Right. Okay. So we are our first week of January. All right. And we are, I will say, 7 weeks short of March Madness when everything is just going to get crazy. So these next 2 months, January and February, are huge for all these teams. And this is the do or die time. This is when you turn a 7 seed into a 3 seed, or you turn a 1 seed into a 4 seed by some key losses or some key wins. So Nebraska needs to get it together, and they need to do it now. If Nebraska just gets to the NIT, hey, great, you got to go to a tournament. If you don't get an invitation to the tournament, I'm going to say this out loud. I'm concerned, Fred, that you won't be here next year.
Right.
Because you do have great talent. You have taken Purdue to overtime. So if you can't then coach your kids, which I know you're a great coach, but if you can't take it to that next level and keep them on task and do whatever you need to do to get them that invite, I'm going to be sad for 2 reasons. One, millions thrown down the toilet because we have to send another coach walking.
Right.
I'm not Trev Alberts. Is he going to do it? I don't know. But the writing's on the wall. They don't give you guys much time.
And he's had time.
He has.
It's not like it's only a second or third year here. He's been here several years. And it's almost like, well, this didn't work. I mean, if you look at what he's tried to do offensively his first couple of years, and now we're at a totally different kind of offense. I get you're trying to find something that works, but are you not recruiting the players because what I'm looking at on paper, the recruits we're getting are like top notch. They got some really good players. So I don't know if it's his offensive mind, his offensive staff, or whatever it is, but defensively, Huskers have been pretty good throughout his tenure. But offensively, there has been some really bad shooting, offensive play running into game scenarios where you're like, what the hell is that mess?
Right. And just looking at the last 5, it could be a road mentality because we dropped on a Michigan State, didn't show up. So maybe we don't travel well because also Kansas State, we're on the road, didn't travel very well. At home, Purdue, home crowd, we got into it. Hey, we came out and played and almost knocked them off. And they were 1 at that time, I think, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So, Fred, I hope you get it figured out because you're in my mind, you're a good coach, and I want to see you do great things with this team. So
And it's funny you mentioned number one Purdue because once again, like you had said, number one lost again.
yeah,
UConn lost at number one, or Cincinnati, whichever one, and then now Purdue has lost at number one. Squeaked out a win against Ohio State last night. So yeah, numerous. Again, I think we're at 5. I was trying to count it the other day. 5 number ones have lost this year, which I like because, when you go to make your tournament, you don't just automatically write this team in, that Kentucky team in the 90s or the Duke team out Final Four. Just put them there. A lot of these teams are losing. And some, Purdue lost to Iowa, who didn't have.
Purdue has some issues, or Iowa has some issues.
Oh, my goodness. Right.
Yeah. And Purdue beat Ohio State in Ohio State. Ohio State's ranked number 24. Okay. So the reason I bring that up, they can figure out a way to win on the road. They can figure out a way to win on the road at a really good team. So I want us to figure that out because Purdue is coming back to Pinnacle Bank Arena January 13th. And I would love
Oh, man.
to knock them off at the kneecaps if they're still number one and have our Husker men's team put that feather in their cap and use some of that confidence to build on the rest of the season.
Fact.
Whether that happens or not, we'll find out because I haven't won the lottery either, and I would or at least the jackpot. I would like to do that as well. Yeah. Staying in the basketball arena, we're going to look at some NBA stuff.
Go ahead. Iowa. Sorry, it was Rutgers that beat Purdue.
Rutgers.
Sorry, my bad.
No, yeah, you're right. Rutgers beat Purdue on the second, and that was a close game. That was by 65-64.
Yes. Yep.
So, yeah, Purdue can be beaten.
Yes.
They can. They're 14-1. They're third in the Big Ten. They've won some close ones. They lost that really close one to Rutgers. Rutgers isn't even ranked.
No.
But that just proves to you any given night the best teams can go down if you have a great plan because they held them under 65 points.
You play solid defense and get your shots.
Yeah. Yes, great defense. And that was in Purdue. In Purdue. I'll say that one more time. In Purdue.
Right. And going back to something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, that game, probably the bowl game that surprised me the most is the LSU-Purdue game. LSU played championship football, and Purdue played, we don't even know why we have a bowl win or a bowl game. They talk about not showing up. I mean, I'll get the bowl rankings later, who won what, but that game I really thought would be a little bit closer. But LSU, talk about going in prepared, not worried about who left or who's not going to practice or who's not going to play. Wow, what a game by LSU, and Purdue not showing up at all to not even represent your team or the Big Ten. But anyway.
So to illustrate your point, I had to look it up because I kind of remembered, but Purdue scored 7 points and LSU scored 63. So again, that's preparation, but also that is a game that doesn't matter. So Purdue came in going, we're going to a bowl game. Hey, great. LSU's like, we're going to show everybody what we have for next year's rankings.
Right.
And I bring this up because some of those NFL teams that really have nothing to lose, they do the opposite thing of what Purdue does. We want to ruin your season. We want to ruin your chance to get that number one seed. And we want to prove to everybody else that you better watch out for us next year because we've got it figured out. So that's why it's fun to watch.
You go to the Big Ten title game, even though you got beat, and you don't even show up in the right. And that 7 points I remember was like late. They were getting shut out, I think, through the most of the first half or all the first half. Yeah, it was ridiculous. This not high-powered offense, but this really, really good Purdue offense couldn't move the ball at all.
Right.
Yeah, hats off LSU. Way to show up, like you said. And, hey, granted, we're not playing for the national title, but of the SEC teams, they're right there with Georgia as far as how well they played in the bowl games.
And speaking of showing up, we're going to stay in the NBA arena. Friday night game, 6:30, ESPN, Nets at Pelicans. The Nets have been showing up. But right now, Zion's hurt for the Pelicans.
Oh, man, that sucks.
And Roger thinks that since Zion's hurt, the Nets get it done on the road. I think the Pelicans rally, and I think New Orleans wins at home. I feel that they need a win.
Right. I know the Nets are reeling, but again, it's nothing against Roger. Sorry, buddy, but Atlanta, Charlotte, and San Antonio. 3 teams not going anywhere. That Bulls game, the Bulls were shooting so well, and I don't know where the Nets defense was at, but the Bulls played really good. I think they had 7 players in double digits that game. Durant pulled in 44, and they still lost. I mean, I think the Bulls led almost wire to wire. I loved it, and I really hope I root for Zion and the Pelicans, mainly because they haven't done anything in a while.
So you mentioned the Nets last game, and that was against the Bulls. So this is what the Bulls did to the Nets to get a win. The Bulls shot 53% overall, 43% from the 3-point line, and held the Nets to 32.4% from 3 and 46.2 overall. And that's defense.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Granted, they still scored 112, but the Bulls put up 121. And like you said, the Bulls had, let's see here, Williams in double figures, DeRozan in double figures, Vucevic in double figures. I butcher your name every time. Sorry, buddy. Levine in double figures, Dosunmu in double figures. And then, who's this? White. Kobe White in double figures, North Carolina kid.
Yep.
So,
doesn't even get a lot of time.
No. And he did that in 28 minutes, but all those guys just got it done. But the Kyrie Irving put up 25, Kevin Durant put up 44. So, you're still going to have those guys score. Brooklyn's favored by 4.5 in this.
And the last time they played, Pelicans destroyed them, 130 to 108. Zion did play that game, put in 25. Without him this game, I'm not betting it one way or the other just because I don't. It is at New Orleans, so.
But okay, so if you
I give them that, but
yeah,
I mean, if I had to pick, I'd pick with my heart and pick the Pelicans because I'm sorry, I still don't think the Nets are for real. They've won some games here and there, but overall, they still have a lot of issues. Their bench isn't very good. If Durant, like I said, even with 44, couldn't beat the Bulls. If he can't go off every night, they don't even have a chance. I'll take the Pelicans at home also.
I see what you're saying, but the Celtics couldn't beat the Bulls. For whatever reason, the Bulls are giant killers this year.
Yes.
It makes no sense to me because they'll get up for the biggest team and then
lose to Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hear you say the Pelicans at home because looking at the last 5 games, every single home game they've won. And that was the Timberwolves, who are really good.
Oh, man. Very.
Philadelphia 76ers, really good. On the road, Memphis, Grizzlies are a great team. Oh my gosh, they're so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. And it's not just Ja, but he gets all the headlines. Yeah. But that whole team, the starters are all under 25 or something ridiculous.
It's great.
And then they played Philly again on the road, lost, and then they beat Houston at home, which everybody should beat Houston this year. So Roger was the lone guy who took the Nets because he thinks Zion being out will be the key factor. I'm thinking New Orleans at home, and you shouldn't bet against New Orleans at home this year. So
I agree.
That's where I went. Next up, the late game, Friday night, Heat and the Suns, 9 p.m. ESPN game.
Almost a 50-50 game, to be honest. I mean, these two teams, they're like you said, they're both 20-19. Only a 2-point spread, which is, that's a 50-50 game right there.
I think so. And the Heat's on the road, which I really thought was crazy that the Heat's favored on the road in Phoenix. But they have the overs at 214. They both know them can score. Roger thinks the Heat win.
Yeah,
they're both 20-19.
Yep, they're doing their little West Coast swing. They won their first 3 and they lost at the Lakers without LeBron. And that's another thing. I wish I had that little buddy to send me those stats. I want to say the Lakers are either better, above, or right at 500 without LeBron. He didn't make this last game. I think he had a positive COVID test or sitting out possible COVID. And they beat the Heat. So, when you're making that long of a West Coast, and then you have Phoenix coming back, first game at home. They've been on an East Coast swing where they lost 4 or 5.
Lost last 4.
Yeah. So, and I don't get it, man. I really thought Phoenix was going to own the West.
Okay, so Phoenix lost last 4, but the Heat lost to L.A.
Right.
To the Lakers. I mean,
without LeBron.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Miami also. When you look at their 5, 7 players, Hero, Abadayo, and them, I like them a lot. But on the flip side, it's hard to go against Phoenix at home with, Booker, Paul, and, their big guy, name escapes me. But again, 50-50 game. If I flipped a coin, I'd just take the home team and say Phoenix wins. But I'll root for Miami.
Yeah, Roger took the Heat. James is taking the Heat. And
No, Suns.
Oh, you're taking the Suns.
Yeah, only because they're at home.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can go with.
I'm taking the Heat to extend that losing streak for the Suns. Just something's not right. I think they're watching too many headlines. Do we get sold? We're under investigation because he did some poopy head things. I just think there's too much noise going on in their ear, and they lose one at home again, 5th straight. So the last NBA game that we have on our little lineup here to look at is a Monday game that has to compete with the NCAA football championship being held that same night. They both start at the same time, 6:30. The Celtics are home after being on the road for 4 straight games. The Celtics did beat Dallas last night to the point they beat them so handily that Luka Doncic sat the entire 4th. They had him so frustrated. They double teamed him and they switched just flawlessly. That was some of the best defense I've seen from the Celtics since Ime said, "Hey guys, we need to play defense."
And it showed with the only giving up 112 points to a Dallas team and holding, like I said, I know he didn't play the 4th, but he was barely had 23 points. And he's averaging 44 a game in the last 6 or 7, whatever it is. But yeah, I only got to catch that game a few times last night. I kept trying to get to it. But each time I watched, the Celtics were moving the ball on offense. I was like, oh my goodness, this is the most passes I've seen in 4 straight series or 4 straight possessions in a while. It was great. And on the other side, yeah, you want to talk about frustrated. I don't know if you were watching. I want to say it was in the 3rd quarter, but Celtics hit 4 out of 5 threes. And no joke, dude, all 4 of those threes, and including the miss, the 5th one, was all from that same corner. They just put somebody different over there. They would do whatever in the paint, move it around. A guy would sneak to that corner, they throw it over there. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you for keep running the same play until they beat it. You know what I'm saying? If it's going to work. But anyway, yeah, it was great watching the intermittent that I got to see last night of that game of the Celtics that I was really expecting to see this year.
Yeah. Tatum had a triple-double. Horford didn't even get to double figures, but he had 8 commanding rebounds, 3 assists, and he was, at times, really key in helping that extra pass to the open guy. And they were keying on him a lot, and that actually helped open up more offense. Marcus Smart scored 15. He got in double figures. Derek White scored double figures. He got 10, and which was really strange. He only had 1 assist in 21 minutes.
Yeah, but I think that just went from all the extra ball passes, and again, as a Celtics fan, I wasn't used to seeing that. We saw it here and there, saw it in the playoffs a couple games, but this year I just don't. It's usually 1-2 passes and somebody's going to be taking it or shooting or.
Malcolm Brogdon has been under a lot of scrutiny, and I read a very, I'm going to say, sad article where they said, what's wrong with Malcolm? I don't think anything is wrong with Malcolm. This is his first year here, and he's in double figures. And the point of the article was, well, he's not the same player. Well, he's not on the same team.
Right. Thank you. His role is different.
Right. And he was with that Indiana Pacers team for, 5 years maybe? So he gelled really well with that core, and he ran it, and he was the starter, where it's tough to be a starter on the Celtics team when you have a Tatum, when you have a Brown, when you have a Horford, when you have a Smart, when you have a Derek White.
Right.
So
Fact.
They sat him down to go, you're not a starter, but you're a starter with the second team, and we need that leadership from you. Are you willing to do that? And he, week in, week out, he scores double figures. He scored 15 in 25 minutes. He had 3 assists. He had 3 rebounds, and he had 4 assists. So he's looking for the open player. But what stat you don't see all the time that is key is how he can stop the other players.
Oh, right.
It's amazing, his defense. This guy hustles both sides. He's not taking the defense side off. He's hustling. He's helping with fast breaks. So the person that wrote that article, I don't think you know really what you're talking about.
It's almost like you're trying to stir something up that's not there. And I hate when sports reporters do that. Because, yeah, in fact, if you just look at the intangibles that he brings, like I said, what does it show up on those defensive stats? How much has he denied that guy the ball? He didn't have any steals. Yeah, but his guy only caught the ball 3 times while he was defending him, So let's look at that. And the other thing is, like you said, he's on a totally different role. The people talk about Westbrook was supposed to be the cancer of the Lakers and he needs to get off that team. Oh, by the way, look what he's done with second team. Once he's accepted the role and like, okay, I'm no longer a starter. I need to lead the second team, and the Lakers bench has played better. Same thing in Brogdon. He accepts the roles. He's got to get used to it. And, yeah, and that's just going to make the Celtics that much better. I never watched a game where I'm like, what a waste this guy was. If anything, that's Blake Griffin for me. He has come in and showed some big signs, and he's been some nice spots here and there. But game in and game out, I'd rather have Brogdon on the floor than Blake Griffin.
I'm right there with you for a couple reasons. Blake is unfortunately towards the end of his career. And yeah, I didn't want to use the O word because he's not old, but in basketball years,
right.
He is long in the tooth.
Right.
The way I read that article, and I can't say this 100% fact, this is my humble opinion, and I have some stinking ones sometimes, but the way I read that Brogdon article was this. You have people that will pay journalists to write a story. I read this as a sports agent wants his player to be a Celtic, and he needed to get some sort of word out there for the Celtics to think, well, maybe we should trade him.
Right.
And I read this article that way. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out who they would prefer to have there than Malcolm Brogdon, because I don't personally think that is going to happen. But they needed to start that seed of doubt for the Malcolm Brogdon's not working out. So my client with this team over here, who maybe isn't as good, but would like to have some Boston Celtics money, we need to get him over there. That's how I read the article.
I feel you. And okay, speaking of that, and I apologize to the viewers and the listeners here. I'm sorry, the listeners, if I don't mention your team here, but as a Celtics fan, coming up on the trade deadline, obviously it's not, I think it's 3 weeks away or whatever it is. I don't see anyone out there. I do know Pritchard, I'm going to guess Griffin is going to be tradable. And there's one other guy. I'd have to look at the lineup. Anyway, there's like 3 Celtics guys I could see being traded. But there's no one out there that I'm like, dude, if besides getting someone else a superstar. Don't get me wrong. Granted, if you brought in a Giannis or Porzingis or somebody, right? But I'm talking about just for another role player, like you're talking about with this Brogdon moving on. I don't see anyone that I would want. Well, does anyone replace the 5 that's there? No. So whatever you're going to give up is somebody coming in with a role playing to help get you through. And I think what the Celtics have now works, but I definitely see. Unfortunately, I think they're going to move on from Pritchard, not because Brad Stevens wants to, just because he's wasting on the bench. The kid can play, just not getting it.
So counterpoint to what I just made, prior to having a different GM, we had Danny Ainge. And for a while, we also had, what is that guy's name that came from... I don't even know if he got picked up anymore. Wow, I just blanked. But okay, so we had this great player who was a little bit older, and he ended up going to the Knicks. And then I think the Knicks waived him or didn't pick him up on his thing the next year. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. I can't think of his name. But what if that article was actually from Brad Stevens going, hey, we need to create some doubt. We need actually to move Brogdon. because he is great, but we can get some other great people for him. So there's multiple ways to look at these articles when you read some articles. So who paid you to write this article? One is how I look at articles anymore. And two, why did they do it? To possibly open the door for trade talks, maybe, or potentially get trade talks for their client, maybe. But you also said, if we don't talk about your team, hey, that's what the comments are for. If you have somebody that you want us to see, let us know, because we talk about NHL now because someone asked, hey, talk about NHL.
Yep.
So any other final thoughts on this NBA lineup those 3 games that we talked about?
Now, on that Boston Bulls game, Bulls have beat them 2 out of 3. Boston's one lone win at home, 123-119. So it was a close one. The other ones, the Bulls have won handedly. I'm going to say Celtics are going to win this one just because they got to even this series up and let the Bulls know you're not going to be a giant killer with us. Go beat the Bucks. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Celtics against the Bulls on Monday night.
For me, this is a have to win, because you are coming off that road trip. You might be a little sour and tired, but you need that injected energy from your home team. Since it's so far away, we don't have a line on it yet.
Right.
Roger thinks the Boston Celtics win as well. James thinks the Celtics win. If the Celtics don't win, I would also understand why, because you're exhausted after the road trip. But I would be really disappointed if they drop one.
Right.
Just really disappointed. Okay. So this is the place where we usually have any final thoughts, any parting thoughts. James, anything else that we didn't cover today that you want to bring up?
We'll just mention a little bit of hockey for those fans out there. Bruins became the first team since 1944-45 season. The fastest to 30 wins. They've played 38 games. They have 30 wins. The other night with the DeMar Hamilton going on, it was on January 3rd, hat trick, 3rd goal thing. It was all threes. It was pretty cool, and their big win that they had in overtime. My Devils are still hanging around in 4th, 24 wins, but 30 wins in 38 games in hockey, very impressive. And in the West, the Golden Knights are sitting at 27 wins, but they have a few more games, 27-12. The Stars, Kings, and Jets, like Roger has brought up a few times, everything's right there. When you look at 2 through 7, it's like 1 or 2 victories. So right now, hockey is almost like the NFL, where
it's a really tight
must
race.
win every week, right? Or every game. It's nuts.
It's such a tight race right now.
Yep.
And I will leave another link for the Alex Ovechkin career goal tracker.
He got 2 more.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
So I will leave a link for that in the description. Roger, we miss you. We know you got some stuff that you had to take care of today. James, anything else?
That's it.
All right, folks. Go watch some sports for Blue Collar Sports Talk. This is Darrell. Go enjoy your Friday.